Hey everybody, Old School Comic Book Reviews, another random comic book review. This is Crossfire number 17, written by Mark Evender and drawn by Dan Spiegel, published by Eclipse Comics. This is from 1986. Basically, just to jump back a little bit, Mark Evender was he did a lot of comic book work in the 70s and 80s, but he also did a lot of writing for like animation and for sitcoms and variety shows and things like that. So a lot of that sort of background kind of informs the environment for this particular character. The premise of Crossfire is the main guy is named Jay Endicott, and he is a bail bondman in Hollywood. And the thing is, he gets the costume of a guy named Crossfire, who's kind of this kind of sort of crooked dude, But of course, he's got the costume. Now he's trying to be a good guy, and the thing is, the cops still think he's the old guy who was a bad guy or whatever. This particular issue starts off where he is at the Kmart, and he's been set up, and he gets caught by the police, and so they're going to take him in, and they're going to try to unmask him. And then he's like, police brutality, police brutality. So then they're like, okay, we're going to do this by the book, and we're going to cross all our T's and dot all our I's. And so his way of getting out of it, first he like fakes a phone call to himself. They don't know who he really is. So he fakes a phone call to Jay Endicott. Of course, he is Jay Endicott. And come get me out of jail or whatever. And here's how he gets out of it. This actually kind of cracks me up. So they put him in his cell, and they walk away, right? So then, while they're gone, he takes off his costume and he like rips it up, and then he like flushes it down the toilet. So then when they all come back, here's Jay, and they're like, Jay, what are you doing here? Where is Crossfire? And he's like, I don't know. I came into the cell and he knocked me out and took my clothes. And they're like, oh, this Crossfire, he's giving us the slip again. I mean, really, seriously, wouldn't the other cops have seen like Jay walk in? Or even if it wasn't these guys, somebody would have had to let him in. But they buy his story, as ridiculous as it is. Okay, so next, the rest of the issue is kind of split into like these little chapters where they basically wrap up some sort of several ongoing storylines and put some other ones on hold. So here we meet this guy, and he's basically a stunt pilot, but we find out that on the side he has been making runs across the border, and he's delivering marijuana and stuff like that. There's Jay kind of getting him out of trouble or whatever, or bailing him out, I should say. Okay. And then here's this dude. He is the witness, and he's kind of this vigilante guy, but the thing is, he's portrayed as being completely unhinged, and he really doesn't have a grasp on reality or anything like that. So here he is with some dude, and the dude is like, hey, you know what, they found me innocent, so they let me go. But, witness, he ain't having it. He shoots the guy anyway. And then there's Jay. And then we meet this guy, Joey Getz. And the gag behind Joey Getz is he's this, like, completely, like, terrible stand-up comedian. And, oh, hold on. I'm cooking. Anyway, so the gag is Joey is this really terrible stand-up comedian, and he's been on TV and he keeps bombing, but he's trying to get back on this guy's show. He's kind of this sort of late-night talk show, kind of like a Johnny Carson, David Letterman type guy, and they're telling him, no, you suck, you blew it, you're no good or whatever. And then here he's like, come on, put me on a show. I'll do anything. I'll get you girls. I'll get you drugs or whatever. And then finally the guy goes, well, if you can get me some blow, maybe I'll put you on the show again. Okay, so then he goes to meet this guy here in the green suit. This guy's like a big deal drug dealer named Peanuts. He's Peanuts the drug dealer. And Peanuts is like, well, I'll get you some blow if you can get me a pilot to fly the stuff in, okay? So, and then here's this pilot that we met a little bit earlier right here. Okay, so here's Lou. He's like the cop who's always trying to catch Crossfire or whatever, and blah, 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 whatever. And then here we go. We're back to Jay. And he's trying to figure out what's going on with everything. But he's ripped up his costume, so he doesn't have a costume, but he does have a spare mask. So he just puts on his spare mask, and he just goes in some regular clothes. And he goes to meet Peanuts, and he's like, all right, dude, I know you're up to something. See there? Oh, this is actually pretty funny because a big deal is made out of the fact that look what Peanuts is wearing. He's got this long hair and this giant mustache, and he's got these kind of outlandish, flashy clothes that kind of would have looked cool back in 19 whatever. He's about 10 years out of date. Not even see more so. I mean, that would have been cool like in 1973, maybe. But of course, the comic book's published in 1986, and a big deal of it is made out of the fact that he's kind of out of style. Anyway, when Crossfire leaves the dude's house, he's jumped by by the witness, who is kind of nuts. He's like thinks everybody's an evildoer, and they have like a fight and everything. And Crossfire gets away, and there's a witness vowing vengeance. And then here Joey gets back on the show again. And you hear he's bombing again. You can see all the people are just looking stone-faced. They're not laughing or anything. And there's a guy who's like, get him off my show. And they kick him out. And then oh wait, here's an interesting ad. Women in Comics by Trina Robbins, who used to be a underground comic book artist back in the 60s and 70s, and Kat, I don't know how to say her name, Emerald, who was the editor-in-chief at Eclipse. And then here's also an ad for a book by Bill Eisner, Comics in the Sequential Arts. Okay, so then, like I said, dude gets kicked out of the show, and then the witness shows up again, and there's Crossfire, and the witness is gonna shoot Joey Getz because he knows he's no good and he's dealing drugs along with Peanuts. And then here's Crossfire, and they have a fight, and then Crossfire goes back to Peanuts saying, yeah, you're gonna get yours, buddy. And then that's the end of the issue. And here's an ad for some reprints of old 50s horror comics that were banned back in the day. There's like, you can get some back issues of several Eclipse comics. And here you can get some buttons for some of the comics they were publishing at the time. Laser Racer and Plush Button, I've never read that comic. Scout by Timothy Truman, I've read a few of those, they were pretty good. DNA Agents, I read a couple of those. That was another comic book that was being written by Mark Evender. Masked Man, there's the original Miracle Man. Marvel Comics is reprinting those comics as right now. Mr. Monster by Michael Gilbert, I think. Here's Crossfire. Alien Counter was a science fiction comic they were doing at the time, and Zot by Scott McCloud, who wrote the influential book Understanding Comics. Now, an interesting thing is with this comic book, right at this point, issue 16 or 17, I should say, they put the comic book on hold so they could do a mini series called let's see here. I'm trying to find it. There was a mini series called Crossfire and Rainbow, which was kind of a love story. Oh, I thought there was an ad for it in here. I guess there isn't. But let me make sure. Da, 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 da. No, there's no ad for it. There's no ad for it. Well, anyway, they did a miniseries, a 4-issue miniseries called Crossfire and Rainbow, which was a love story between this guy and this character here from the DN Agents. And it was just kind of a little 4-issue mini where these two characters kind of fell in love and kind of had sort of a relationship going, or trying to have a relationship going. And seeing as Mark, created both characters in both comic series, well, of course, it was natural that he would, do it. And it was kind of, I know I've got it somewhere buried away. I probably should have pulled it out, but it was kind of a fun-ish little romp. It was kind of a mini series, but it was really the continuation of this series here. But anyway, here we go. That was a kind of a fun issue. I really like the art. The story had some corny bits in it, some sort of things that aren't even plausible as far as like superheroes are concerned. But all in all, it's a fun romp. You have fun romp. That's good enough. Good enough right there. And the really interesting parts are actually less the superheroics and more the kind of like Hollywood backstory stuff I thought was really interesting with this. But okay, that's it. I got to thank you very much for listening, and you have a good day.